It's a pleasure and a treat to talk to our wandering spiritual DJ philosopher and man who knows how to handle everything that goes on with Ram Dass's work and life, right?
Oh, I wouldn't go that far, but yeah. We've been friends for a long time, Ram Dass and I, and in the early days I was a student, and so he is very, very special, and as people will be able to see by going to see Becoming Nobody, the new film.
We're very excited that in Sedona you have the opportunity not once, not twice, but actually for 3 days, a special screening of Becoming Nobody. You know, if enough people go in those 3 days, Raghu, there'll be nobody left.
Yeah. That's great.
And it'll be at the beautiful Mary Fisher Theater happening. Do you know anything about the schedule or how people get tickets to that?
Yeah, they go to becomingnobody.com, and you see a link, Find a Theater, and you just go and look for Sedona in Arizona, and there'll be a link to buy tickets and the schedule.
And there's a schedule there. Is it just like one showing a day? Do you have any idea?
You know, I'm not really sure. I think it's more than one, and on the 16th, so it's 13th, it's 4 days, I think, 13th through 16th. And I think on the 16th, Jamie Catto, who is the director and co-producer with me of the film, will be there and doing Q&A and talking to people and hanging out after the film. So that's a fun night to go to.
So that would be Monday the 16th with that.
Yeah. So
and
it opens Friday. Yeah.
Well, you know, I don't know who was really. You were one of the producers of Becoming Nobody,
yeah.
right?
Jamie and I produced the movie.
Uh-huh.
Yes. It came to me 4 years ago. This has been a 4-year labor of love. And he came to me, and I trusted that he was the right man for the job. And Ram Dass, he was a student of Ram Dass's. He met Ram Dass in England 20-odd years ago. And so off we went, but it was a very, very complex, labored project to put together a film that traces the arc of Ram Dass's life and teachings, and within it has some very, very powerful transformational moments. And certainly the idea of Ram Dass being able to give people a new perspective on their lives that isn't so identified with your roles and habitual patterns and the way that we've been brought up and so on, I think is a powerful statement.
Well, what amazed me, because I had a chance to see a preview on Maui, what amazed me is the huge amount, the library of great clips. Now, I've been following Ram Dass and seen his other movies and, of course, read his books and had a chance to interview him, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 times or more, but there were clips here and interviews and pieces that I'd never ever seen before.
Right. Yes, and we went deep into this amazing catalog of his work. I mean, one thing that happened over the years, whoever he was around, they all put a tape recorder or a video camera there. We have footage that is before Ram Dass. It's Richard Alpert at Harvard, maybe 1964, 5, something like that. That's amazing, all the way to, of course, this wonderful chat that Jamie had, the director had with Ram Dass at his home, a few years ago, over several days. And that thread through the movie is simply a delight.
And you know what? They have a beautiful communication.
Yeah, exactly.
And some people get a little, flabbergasted around him and just can say, I love you or something, or you're such an inspiration. Yeah. But he's able, and through the gift that he has on this movie, to actually talk to him one-on-one. And
yeah, exactly. And be able to express stuff from his some quote-unquote somebody-ness, He's not trying to be other than who he is, Jamie. So Ram Dass delighted in that. That's why I use that word. Because he does not like people who come, and especially doing interviews and so on, that are too obsequious, or he calls it too gooey. And so Jamie was the opposite of that. So he delighted in that, and you can tell in the film. And there's some great stuff that comes of it, too, in Jamie's questions and comments.
I have to say that it's a classic piece that is, there's such a, like you said, the huge library, but I mean, when you think of 50 years or more, actually, of what he's been doing, many people in the spiritual community really have followed him for a long, long time, from the 60s all the way till now. And so, I mean, he's kind of a pivotal archetypal figure of the growth of what's happened in the spiritual community for many, many people. I mean, at events you'll see some people show up with their Be Here Now T-shirts. Some have original things they kept all these years, right?
Yeah. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And, there's no doubt that certainly Ram Dass is an icon from that era, late 60s into early 70s, when there was a lot of movement from new generation to take a look at the East in terms of getting some kind of connectivity to a spirituality that made sense, because we all had a lot of trouble with Judeo-Christian principles, and so we flew the coop, so to speak, and Ram absolutely a central figure in people being able to figure out that this was something that we all could take part in, and this, when I talk about, Cindy, I just want to say about, like, people say, what are we talking about here? Becoming nobody? What do you mean nobody, We're walking around dealing with this world, dealing with our jobs, families, social and political interests, and so on. You can't be a nobody. So here's my, this is what I say to people. I say, well, what this is about is, I can only give you my experience. When I first met Ram Dass, I was running a radio station in Montreal, rock and roll station, and I was asked to promote a lecture he was giving at McGill University. I didn't know who Ram Dass was, but when soon as they said Richard Alpert and Tim Leary, I went, oh, yep, love them. Okay, send me a tape over. I want to hear what it is he's talking about. And when they did that, every word was, I had been waiting a long time to hear. A lot of truth just rang with me. It just rang the bell. And I went to I said, I got to see this guy. And I went, he was staying in a house in Montreal with friends, but he was the only one there. And when I walked in the door, he just contacted me with his eyes and a few feet apart, and put himself completely aside. I mean, it wasn't a conscious thing. He was just being there for me. And in a way that I had not had anybody care like that in a moment when there was nothing else. There's just absolutely nothing. So out of that, I got this extraordinary trust. I could trust this person, and it was an amazing thing. This is what Ram Dass has been doing all these years. He's been and by the way, he's human just like all of us. He's not a guru, and he's working on himself the way we all are. He's just a little further down the trail, shall we say. And but for the most part, he has been able to put aside his stuff, his Ram Dass-ness or Richard Alpert-ness, and be there for people in a way that is so spacious, wide open, and present. Is Be Here Now. It's quite amazing. I mean, he when he first went to India, he was taken in by Neem Karoli Baba to this ashram, and he just let them handle his teachings. They taught him yoga. They taught him. I mean, I don't mean just hatha yoga. I mean the Eightfold Yoga, all of the different philosophies. He left there, and when he left there, Neem Karoli Baba said to him, "Don't talk about me when you go back to the West." And when Ram Dass went back, and people started engaging him just because he certainly had a light that was shining. People wanted to know what it was, and he could do nothing but talk about Neem Karoli Baba.
Well, you were you'd gone there. You'd been to India.
Yeah, and that's what happened to me. Mm-hmm. And then I said, I got to meet this man, and then ensued my own getting to India and having that extraordinary experience. But Ram Dass I said to him recently, why did you do that. He told you not to tell anybody about him. He obviously didn't want people coming there. And he said, I couldn't, it wasn't something I could think about doing or not doing. I could do nothing but share that jewel that I had brought back with me. That's what becoming nobody is about.
Well,
it's about caring for other people, not just me all day long.
Well, that's dropping the ego, which is like such a huge thing, and very difficult if you become as famous as Ram Dass became to try to get to that point.
Yeah, but you know what? He didn't drop his ego, and nobody drops their ego. You need that ego to operate here. There's a personality that you have, and so on and so forth. What gets dropped is attachment to that part of you that is doing what it needs to do in the world to stay alive, and all of the survival instincts and so on. But there's nothing sticking. So the thoughts that you have, you're not believing in them anymore. Mm-hmm. The story you tell yourself, you look at that askance and go, well, that's interesting. And Ram Dass's honesty and sense of humor is critical, and you can see it in this movie for us to be able to get our lives a little bit more in balance.
I know it's interesting when we see the transition because, we all know from Leary and Ram Dass, there was a tune in, turn on, drop out, and then there was that huge acid taking time, and people, were thinking that was the answer to everything. And then there was the time when the spirituality, of course, happened, where with his teacher, he started realizing if you got to a certain point, it didn't even make a difference anymore, because that's his teacher did and didn't get affected by that at all. So then there was this, and I remember hearing him come when he first came to Hawaii, Maui. There were so many people asking him about taking acid, and he kept trying to express them. Listen, you don't really need that, and he's being totally honest, about, yes, maybe every now and then, but it's not a lifestyle you can live with. And it was interesting to see him kind of, where the original draw was everyone was going to get high at that time, and it was happening in the 60s and 70s. Everyone was going to go to, do the Woodstock thing, right? And then pulling that back into a way of living where the spiritual lessons became the most important thing in living your life, right? And you probably saw that happen.
Well, but we can't discount the fact that when Ram Dass gave that powerful hit of acid to Neem Karoli Baba, and nothing did happen, and he said, "This is good for beginners. It allows you to get into and have darshan, or be in the presence of Christ for a few hours. Then you got to go back. Ultimately, better feed people. That'll get you there." Mm-hmm. So, but the reality is that he did say that, and that is what happened to most of us that went there. And Ram Dass himself said, because of my cultivating psychedelics in the 60s, I had it helped me to be able to understand a being like this that is not living in duality and is interconnected in a way that we read about in books, but being with it, and it's more of an is extraordinary. So let's not underplay that reality, and that reality we know because we see next generation kids coming, and they get Be Here Now, they take a psilocybin, whatever it is, and suddenly a door opens. So it is a door opener, and at the same time, Ram Dass himself went to India because he said, I kept coming down from these trips, and that was not what my sense was that was not reality, going in and out of anything. And so he said, I went to India to look for a map of consciousness, and that's when he met Neem Karoli Baba. And now, of course, he's integrated that in a way that's extraordinary, and that's what this movie expresses.
Beautifully said. And you know what is interesting? When you're in Ram Dass's presence now, because of the wheelchair, the stroke, many times he just does not talk. In fact, I just read an article. I don't know if you saw the one that was in the Los Angeles Times that was put out in a blog, and she said, well, I think his blog was called Breakfast with Ram Dass. And basically, she said, well, he didn't say anything the whole time, but what does happen, which is I guess a great compliment, is you can be in Ram Dass's presence and you can be in your own presence, and being in that state, you really don't need to talk. And she really did feel that, and it shines from him, it just glows from him.
Yeah, yeah. And that's, every day is different these days, of course, with him. And some days, we'll have a whole conversation. And some days we'll just sit for some time. I actually have a friend who we have a partnership with. Actually, this movie is presented by Google Empathy Lab and Love, Serve, Remember Films. And the founder of Google Empathy Lab is Danielle Ananda Kredic. And we are doing, what her mission is for Google is to take human values and inform Google artificial intelligence programmers and developers. And she had been a student of Ram Dass without meeting him till just recently, 8 months ago. And she thought that the values that Ram Dass represented around what I call undefended heart were what she wanted to, was a central theme that she wanted to import, shall we say, to the Google AI people and so on. So she sits with Ram Dass, and she'll maybe say a little bit about what the lab is doing and all of that, and she'll have answers that come to her without him expressing any complex thoughts. They could be just one word here and there. Mm-hmm. So it's yes, it's true. It's the presence is very powerful, but he emits something that allows people to kind of find their own truth.
Well, you see that in the movie in some of the conversations he has. And
exactly.
and that's why the Q&A on Monday, the 16th, will be very interesting, because there was that, and I think that form of communication is also extremely valuable if any of us have had parents or friends that have Alzheimer's or dementia. Because I think that same gift of being able to communicate without words, or just by the energy or understanding or looking. And I hope that your friend can actually use this gift to help with that as well. But there is that amazing thing that happens, and it happens. And in the movie, it shows a beautiful side that some people aren't aware of, about how Ram Dass has, for many years, gone to people who are very close to making their transition. And he has some beautiful stories in this movie about how he just sits there and sometimes doesn't talk, but just sits there with people as they're getting ready to die. And the beautiful beautiful energy that is happening once they can just be in that presence without fear as they get ready to go.
And there's a lot of profound stuff from Ram Dass around transition, around dying, around being, terminally ill, and it's a powerful thing, because as we all know, we hide that stuff in the West. I mean, and it's a no-no, it's like he talks about it as no, dying isn't, a letdown, it's not outside of our experience, it's part of our experience of life. So it's part of life. Life and death are one thing. And, that's very difficult for us, because we are so attached to our minds and bodies that when you lose somebody, you feel like that's it, gone, or I'll be gone. And the reality is there is a love that happens between people, and it's not a business deal, not the kind of love, if you do this, I'll do that, or I'll be something for you if you be something for me. It's beyond that, and it's eternal, and it's part of what our souls are made up of, and that communication continues no matter what. Now, it's easy to say these things, and you're going to have grief if somebody close to you dies. There is no doubt about it, and we have to have that, and we have to go through it. At the same time, as Ram Dass says, you can live on more than one plane of consciousness at a time. So there's the plane where we are grieving, and then there's the plane where we know that that love that we have does not end.
And that's a beautiful lesson as he gets to his 80. He's in his 88th year, isn't he?
He's 88, and every day for him is a miracle of being alive. After half paralyzed, being in a stroke victim and in a wheelchair for 22 years. Nobody, the doctors say we don't know anybody who's ever had anything like that. Now, I'm sure there's somebody, but it is awfully unusual to have that kind of massive stroke and survive this long and be so productive. And to this day, even if he's not talking, I talk with him, and he's completely, absolutely aware, even to the point where he'll ask me about somebody that we knew together 20 years ago, So it's extraordinary. And yet he has to go through what he calls in the movie the gorgeous aches and pains.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I could put it that way.
Well, that is again how he embraces all of life, and that is why he is so honored. And I have to say that comes across in the movie. It's a valuable learning tool, and if people want to explore that, they can go to the website becomingnobody. Is it .com?
becomingnobody.com. You can see the trailer. You can see all these beautiful press things that we've got up there, and you can really find a theater and sign up. Sign up to becomingnobody.com. Put your email address in, and then also if you're interested in bringing it into your community, because you might be somewhere that it's not playing, because it is not playing in every city across the country, and people bring the film in to their community centers or yoga centers or whatever it may be. So becomingnobody.com.
And I do want to put out there that you've got a fantastic way of communicating through your podcast that you put out. And how do people find out about that? No, it's a great gift.
Thank you. So I have a podcast. I do two. One with Ram Dass called Here and Now, where I introduce different talks, and then one called Mind Rolling, where I talk to all sorts of extraordinary people, from teachers to thought leaders. And you can go to BeHereNowNetwork.com, and there's Mind Rolling, Be Here Now, Ram Dass Here and Now, and Jack Kornfield, Sharon Salzberg, Krishna Das, Lama Surya Das, just extraordinary podcasters and teachers. And it's really a wonderful wealth of fantastic spiritual information at the very least.
And you know what? I'm so glad that there's ways now that all of this beautiful, powerful spiritual information is reaching out to everyone. And I truly think it does change the vibration and the energy, and combat some of the negative energy that goes out there with the news.
Yeah.
And it's so important that people support these wonderful spiritual gifts that we're given. So again, this is 4 days in Sedona, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and a special Monday event where this is going to be a chance to actually talk to the man that's in the movie of Becoming Nobody, have one-on-ones, talk to him about the whole thing, and it'll, I'm sure, bring up some very interesting connections and questions that will make it very relative and very important to you as you find out from him his experiences directly on the making of this very important film. So I can't thank you enough, Raghu. I'm
thanks, Cindy.
Always very enlightening to talk to you. So thank you for the
great
work.
to talk to you.
Yeah, and thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for the work you do.
Thank you for the work you do, too, for sure.
Okay.
So, yeah.